talk, distinguished members of the Guild, our guests, invited guests, and ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. Okay, can I hear you better? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to the Press Club Luncheon of Kenya Editors Guild. This is a monthly event where we invite a key policy maker to come and discuss and allow discussion, allow questions on a key policy issue. And our issue in question is the reintegration of refugees into society. Kenya Editors Guild stands to promote professionalism and excellence in journalism. And we also do that through offering opportunity for editors to do discussions such as this. We offer opportunities to our members to be able to understand issues better through platforms such as this. We also offer opportunities for training for reporters, and we offer platforms really to allow media to engage with policymakers. On the question of reporting refugees, we have been looking at the dynamics of refugees. We've been looking at a project that seeks to, change the narrative about refugee issues in Kenya, about their acquiring of citizenship, about their reintegration into society. And we've been asking questions about the legal challenges facing refugees, cultural challenges, the religious challenges, resource challenges facing refugees. How has the media been covering these issues? We'll look at offering opportunities to allow media to report on, various topics, various topical issues, and this has been one of them. How has media been projecting issues of refugees in regard to their citizenship? Do we not have refugees out there who are doing great things, who have lived here since birth? What does the government have in store for them? The Refugee Act of 2021, how has that been deployed? How is it being implemented? So for us, we would like to offer that opportunity for media to ask these questions. We would like to offer that opportunity to the ministry, to the PS, to be able to answer questions regarding the refugee questions, so that then reporters are able to report from a point of knowledge. Reporters are able to report factually, are able to understand the issues before reporting. From this, therefore, we hope to contribute to the realization and the operationalization of the Refugee Act 2021, and we would like to see how it promotes integration of refugees. And we would like to look at the setbacks of this Refugee Act. We'd like to see how then it has been implemented. So that here is our goal, so that we are able to project issues factually and not misreport. And we are glad that our guests, the PS, honored our invite, and we are happy that editors and reporters are here and are keen to ask questions regarding this subject. With those few remarks, I'd like to say thank you very much, and invite the next speaker. When we have our press club luncheon, we invite a senior journalist or a senior editor to put things into perspective. How has the media projected these issues from a media perspective, from where they sit as an editor covering various issues, or as an editor receiving stories about various issues? What is the media getting right? What is the media getting wrong? What are the prejudices that need to be removed from the stories that are being told? So for that, I'd then like to invite Ansoi. She is an editor with the BBC World Service. Karibu sana.
Not have a lot of time. I'm going to only give the highlights. When you have breaking news, you don't go on and on and on. You just give the most important information. So it's really to set the stage for this discussion this afternoon. National security, emerging threats, and opportunities for Kenyans and migrants. And being editors, there's a lot that is placed in our hands, and the public trust us, and they expect nothing but the best, accurate information from us. But how many of us have taken any training, any tertiary training in refugee affairs or related matters? By show of hand, editors? 1, 2. Brilliant. So you can see that there is a need for us to constantly make sure that we are able to serve the public really well. And while I was preparing for this session, I was asked to talk about some of the areas that have not worked, and especially when it comes to how we work with government, what we expect from government. But we are more and more talking about solution journalism, and so I thought to phrase my presentation in that context, areas where we can improve on. And obviously the first one and the most critical is information sharing. I don't know if you share in my frustration sometimes just trying to get information about something new that's happening, especially touching on refugees, can be very, very frustrating, right? Anyone is with me? It's necessarily cleared to speak to us. How about we have more off-the-record briefings? We just come to a session like this that is offline, off-air, off the record, and you tell us, by the way, we are facing this challenge, and it is growing. And over the next 2-3 months, this is what we expect. And that is not for publishing. It is off the record. And I am sure that the journalists who are here, they're distinguished, they will respect that. And it will help us to really understand the issues, the root causes of issues, and appreciate them. And that informs our reporting when now we go on the record. It can be on background. I work for an international media house now. We do a lot of those when we go into countries, because I cover the whole of, the first thing we normally do is to identify some of the key individuals, either in government, in the diplomatic corps, that we can go and sit down with, and they talk about, what they know on background, and that informs us. It is not for publishing. It's for informing us, because we need to be informed first as journalists before we can disseminate accurate information. And we owe that to the public, all of us. So I would really urge us to build this relationship with experts in your ministry so that we can have more collaboration, more information sharing, and that will really enrich how these issues are covered. The other one is also about data. You have the best data. We don't. We really need that data. We need the trends. We need to compare it 5 years, 10 years back. How are things going? What's your prognosis of a situation that comes up based on your experience over the years? And you have excellent experts who have been in the ministry for so long, who understand these issues. When we talk about off the record and background, we're not necessarily talking about, Bwana PS. You have been ambassador and, very experienced in many other areas, including politics. But there are those technocrats in the ministry who have a wealth of information that we can benefit from, off the record and on background. So apart from information sharing and data, we also really need access. Access to these areas, access to the newsmakers, and now that is when we come to the people who can go on the record. Access even to safe houses. Has anyone been to any safe house within the country? Any refugee safe house? We have safe houses. But it looks like my colleagues either are not aware or have just never been granted access to those safe houses. So if we are not able to see these things firsthand, how do we report them? You know, what informs our reporting? The other one is, I would call for is embeds, more embeds with government. We do a lot of embeds internationally because some areas are just not accessible otherwise. You know, when you talk about Ukraine at the moment, there are areas where you cannot go without, you know, a military, in a military bubble or something like that. Closer home, the DRC, as I see some of my colleagues who have been there, there are areas that you cannot access without an embed. And therefore, when you're talking about, I know, you know, you've come to speak about immigration, but it's really closely linked with conflict. If we cannot go as close enough to where it is happening, the source of, you know, people migrating, people, you know, having to flee their homes, then we do not do justice to the public. They cannot really get the depth of some of these problems. And I guess this is also a challenge to us as editors to make sure that we and our colleagues in the newsrooms are equipped for that, are trained for that. You know, there are media houses that cannot deploy journalists to hostile environments without hostile environment training, you know, because, you know, no story is really worth a life, so it's important to back them up. And finally, my final point is on training, which I touched on at the beginning. How many of us have read the Refugee Act? By show of hands.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam, once again. Seems like these are difficult questions, like a PhD thesis. Some of these questions are complex, but anyway, I'll attempt to answer them as much as possible, and probably my colleague from Refugee Affairs can also answer one or two, particularly the last one from Damaris. Now, let me start with the first one, from Charles Omoni. The directives to close the refugee camps to be able to untwist international community. You want assurance? I think the law is now very clear. After the government, or after Parliament passed the Refugee Act 2021, it's very clear the direction we're going, that we are going towards integration. We are focusing more on integrating community, or integrating them to the community. And I want to assure you that the government will not be closing any camps anytime soon. It's not, that is not the direction. We are going to stick to the Marshall Plan, which has some durable solutions. Number one is what we call voluntary repatriation. And that is usually the most viable, where we ask refugees, where do you want to be settled? Others say we want to go to the west, others to the east, and that kind of thing. The other one is, of course, what I've said, resettlement within the community. That is now the heart of the Marshall Plan. And in addition to that, of course, is local integration, which I've also mentioned. And sometimes UNHCR has what we call safe havens for refugees. So, Charles, be assured that we are not thinking in terms of closing the camp. That is why we opened two camps about a month ago. About a month ago, we did open two camps in Dadaab refugee camp to ease congestion that was in the main camp. Ndumu on UPI and NDI. Are we matching them? Well, I explained that UPI, unique personal identifier, is a unique number that we give to newborns that we are planning to roll out to newborns. Right now, the system is such that we give out what we call birth entry number, PEN, a number which appears on the birth certificate. But we are saying the government is keen on upgrading that number from birth entry number into a unique personal number. And that number does not change. It's the same number that will follow you throughout your life. It will be your primary school number, it will be your secondary school index number or registration number, it will be your exam number, it will be your ID number onwards. And remember, we are starting from this year, 2023, say 1st of March 2023 is when we start issuing that number. Remember, there are people in between here who are born like last month, who cannot get that number because we start from a point going forward. So then we start working backwards. And this is different from national digital identity, because national digital identity as a concept, of course it has different definitions, is once you get to 18 years, very accurate in management of our digital identity. I think I've answered your question.
Yeah.
So you don't need to register. Once you get this done, you don't need to go and register again as a voter. You don't need to go and register for ID. It will just be automatic. That when you get to 18, the government knows. This number of people are getting to 18. This number of people need IDs. This number of people are foreigners. And they're not allowed to vote. That kind of thing. Because we are doing something very, very comprehensive for the government. And it's a game changer. Yes, madam?
Just to take you back to the question I asked about the refugee.
The refugee, it was very clear though.
Yes.
That is the Damarisa?
Roslyn.
Roslyn?
Yes.
Roslyn, yes.
Yeah.
Father and mother, yeah?
Yes. Okay, what I was asking is that in the refugee camps, you don't have registration officers. So it means that once a child is born in the camps, they are given the registration of a refugee. And that was what I was asking, that these guys.
Yes, it's okay. Just go ahead.
Okay. So what I was asking is that these guys, maybe they won't be in the camp, but they are intermarried to the people in the community. So in the case that a mother is delivering and delivers in the camp, but maybe the mother is a Kenyan, the father is not. So how does this child become a Kenyan? Because automatically this child is a refugee.
Well, that's where I answered Rosalind that citizenship in Kenya, you acquire them through 2 ways. Either by birth or by registration. So in this case, we determine if the child is not a Kenyan by birth, then they can be registered to be Kenyans. I don't answer that way. Unless you wanted more details. Maybe your question is a bit more technical, so you allow me.
I'm sure you've realized that we are a very, very friendly team. We are a very, very friendly team, and I can see the handshake. So I can also tell you that this team has been very kind to you. We've not really delved into matters of national security, so you could give us a clap for that.
Sure, you have done it.
So I believe that in collaboration with the Guild, we realized that the issue of data and training is really a pertinent one. Maybe you could organize to just train some members of the Guild and journalists. And I think we'll have a better working relationship when you understand us and we also understand you. So thank you very much.
I have something else to say about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been discussing with Nixon. We have to have a breakfast with the press club. All right? So that we can be able to now dissect more this UPI and that kind of thing without much hurry. So we are planning. I actually told him in the morning that we need a breakfast with you people. So I'll come for lunch. You will come for my breakfast.
So thank you very much, Nixon. I am sure you'll follow up that. So we are coming to a close of this very critical event, and I'll invite one of the senior members of the Editors Guild, Charles Omodi, to just give us a closing remarks. But before that, a hand of applause for Ambassador. Karibu, Charles. Let me just also add that in the interest of time, we could have had more speakers from the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and other refugee-led agencies, but we shall push that to another time. So asanteni sana kwa kukuja.
Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to have been born a very shy boy, and as fate would have it, I trained as a journalist, but of the writing kind. So I think I'm a better writer than a speaker. So as I stand before you here, if I don't speak as well as Anne Soy, there is Richard Kaboy over there, Helen Wajiro somewhere here, you will excuse my background and training, but I will try my best. Now, before I forget, I'm informed that when I'm done, we shall be required to come over here for a group photograph. Having said that, Bwana PS and your entourage, I take this opportunity to thank you very much for sparing your time to come and educate us on these critical issues that form the day-to-day part of our operations. One thing that I would like to assure you is that just like yourself and those in the government, we journalists too are very, very patriotic. We are honest, hardworking, and men and women of integrity. But we strive for one thing, to be objective in our coverage. So what we would like is that those in positions of authority, those in position of power, do the right things, and we will cover you objectively. The prejudices you may have encountered in the US and in Pakistan, for example, it has little to do with the coverage, the journalistic coverage of African by African. I would like to believe it has got more to do with probably their system of education and how they are socialized. By the time we were done with our primary education, if you are old as myself, you did the CP, I believe you knew that for sure Americans don't have wings. They are just human beings like the rest of us. So it beats me how in the 21st century you go to the US and you are still confronted with the question, for instance, how did you make it to this place? We are told back at home in your country, people live in trees. Surely that cannot be the product of our media bias, media coverage. It has got everything to do with the American. So, Bwana PS, you can rest assured, we are a very patriotic lot. We want to do our work with utmost integrity. Nevertheless, we thank you so much for sparing this opportunity, and I can assure you that that breakfast you are preparing for us will be well attended. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Come over here for a group photograph.
Thank you very much, Madam Yes, okay. Madam Vice President Subeida, our guest speaker, and journalists who are here, the distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. How are you this afternoon? You're doing good? Okay, I'm happy to be here this afternoon. My name is Ambassador Julius Vito, Principal Secretary to Immigration and Citizen Services. I'm here to represent my Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kindiki, who is out of town for some reason, which is obvious to you. He's dealing with the bandits in the north, very serious issue. And I want to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address you as the press club. Editors Guild. Yes. The Association of, I say journalists of Kenya. Is it an association of journalists or association of
Editors.
editors? Yes. Editors are more senior than journalists, I guess. They are journalists, but now they are also manage the back office, right?
Yes.
Great. Just to put things into perspective, I want to say that it's really a privilege to talk to you. It's my first time. I've been in office for 2 months and 10 days, or rather 2 months and 2 weeks. And it's my first time that I'm coming here to address the press club. And I think it's really a very important privilege. We're coming back from one of the most peaceful elections in the history of Kenya. I think, although the story didn't come out good, the editors, I don't know what happened, but we are one of the, for people who want to come, breaking down all the time, because there were too many people who wanted to come to Kenya after the transition. So, and I think for you as independent, free press, and promoters of democracy, I think it was a milestone, really. It's a game changer. When you see, if you look at Kenya's history, from the first, of course, the first transition did not have a lot to say, because the first president of Kenya died in office. The second transition had issues in 2002, where those were being buried and that kind of thing. If you look at the one for 2007, things went south. If you look at the one for 2013, also it was having a few issues, but not as much. But this one of 2022 was what we can say it was a standard of its own. But to come back to the point why you invited me here today is, as I said, I'm representing the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. And from the executive order, you can see the ministry is divided into 3 state departments. That is State Department for Internal Security and National Administration, State Department for Correctional Services, and the one I'm heading, the State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services. And in these 3 state departments, I want to say that it is designed in a way that we have State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services as the State Department that deals with soft, I say soft side of OP. You know, we have the hard side, or rather the rungu side. We call it the rungu side and the laptop side. So I'm in the laptop side of the OP, so to speak, in quotes. Laptop in the sense that we deal more with data. We deal with the data from NRB, data from CRS, data from immigration. It's more or less data driven. And that's what makes it so key to the success of this government, because data really is what drives the world right now. Having said that, I want to say in our State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services, we have 7 directorates, just to give you a clear structure. We have Directorate of Civil Registration, what we call CRS, that deals with registration of births and deaths. We have Directorate of National Registration, which deals largely with registration of persons who are Kenyans at 18 years and registration of foreign nationals. We also have, of course, the Directorate of Immigration, which largely deals with exit and entry, management of to do things to do with passports, work permits, citizenship, that kind of stuff. We also have what we call LIMS, the Huduma number, and that is now maybe the most controversial. We have the Huduma number domiciled in my State Department. It is called the National Integrated Identity Management System. It was actually designed as a master database for government. We have also what we call IPRS, Integrated Population Registration Service. We also have Directorate of eCitizen, the one now which is in charge of ensuring that the onboarding of 5,000 services is undertaken. And last but not least, which brings us here today, is the Directorate of Refugee Affairs. So those are the 7 directorates we have in my State Department. And if you look at the 7 of them, they all have to do everything to do with data. It's about information. And it's very important that I let you know this, because so that as you ask questions about the journey we have come in terms of management of data, management of information. And to just give you more information about the 7 departments, we have very clear objectives of what we want to do, each and every one of those. On civil registration, that is registration of deaths and births, we want to create what we call unique personal identifiers. And before I came to this meeting, I was just opening a workshop in Kenya School of Government, where we have about 400 registrars from around the country whom we are training on making sure that the registration of birth and deaths is made on, or is taken online, or rather is onboarded, so that it will be an end-to-end process, which creates what we call unique personal identifier, a number which we shall give to the newborns when they are born online, and it will be a number they will use as their birth certificate number. It will be their index number when they go to primary school. It will be their index number when they go to high school. It will be their ID number when they get to 18. It will also be their KRA PIN number. It will be their NSSF number, NHIF number, and then, and lastly, it will be their birth registration number when they exit this world. So it will be a very, very important number. So we have started training our registrars to be able to onboard. It will be end-to-end system, and it's a very interesting system that possibly to be launched soon by the government. On National Registration Bureau, as you are aware, the law gives the mandate to national registration to be able to register persons and foreigners living in Kenya. And we are saying we have very clear intentions before the end of this year to roll out what we call national digital identity. National digital identity. That will be a card that will now be more or less similar to Huduma number, but we'll do it differently so that we don't get into trouble like Huduma number. And I want to say one reason why Huduma number had problems is because it was less consultative. I don't think all the journalists or all the editors were brought on board. That's why you have so many problems. And that's where you come in very strongly as a very important partner for government to be able to implement its projects. On immigration, we have very clear targets. We understand that there's a major problem right now where there are delays in terms of producing passports or issuing passports to Kenyans. Currently, our printers can only print 1,500 passports in a day. And we are saying the demand for passports in Kenya is about 5,000. That is why you see there are many problems. We have put in place plans to ensure that we are able to produce 10,000 passports per day, so that we are able to meet the demand. And that means we need to produce about 2.4 million per year, so that we can be able to meet the demand. Right now, we are producing only 300,000, but it is possible with the proper printers, with good supply of booklets, to be able to make 10,000 passports per day. On IPRS, this is a system which is it's a clearance system. IPRS is a clearance system where all transactions done in Kenya must go through IPRS. That is where there is clearance. If you want to do an M-Pesa transaction, there's usually a delay of about a minute when the Safaricom system queries IPRS to ask them, is this person a Kenyan? Is this person a foreigner? So that IPRS now clears you to do any transaction. Whether you are doing it in Safaricom, Airtel, or even when you are doing it in the banks, it has to go through some security check within the government. On e-citizen, it's very clear that His Excellency has given us a target of 5,000 services before the 30th of June, or rather in the next 6 months, and we are really committed to ensuring that we are able to deliver before that deadline. We want all services. And I want to assure you, the e-citizen platform has now been handed over to the government, and that we are working hard. In the next few days, we are going to go to a workshop to work seriously on ensuring that we onboard all services. Now, coming back to the point which Anne talked about on refugee affairs, I think refugee affairs is one of our most important departments. And just to give you a history, we have about 600,000 refugees living in Kenya. We have 300,000 in the Dadaab refugee camp in Garissa County, and we have another 300,000 although the numbers have increased, in Kakuma refugee camp in Turkana County. And that this refugee affair has been a big challenge to the government because of the complexity of the issue. The issue is largely very complex. I say that because as we receive refugees, you realize that they come with many challenges. They come with expectations. They come with many issues. There are many threats. There are insecurities created by these refugees. There are things to do with environmental degradation because they are congested. There are usually also conflicts between the refugees and the border communities or other communities where they live in. So this issue of refugees is a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue. Not only for the government of Kenya, but world over. I have been an ambassador in Pakistan for 8 years. And they have the same problem in Pakistan. As you realize, Pakistan also is a country where some of our neighbors are very unstable, creating a big problem. Just like Kenya, our neighbors are a bit unstable. And the more they become unstable, then the more we are faced with the challenge of refugees. And I want to say that at the moment, the government is really keen on ensuring that we handle the issue of refugees differently. The previous regime was a bit hostile to this issue of refugees. It was a bit hostile because at some point they decided they wanted to close the camp. At some point they decided, well, what can we do? But this is not an issue that you can just sweep away. It's a complex issue. I say that because when you look at what happened the other day, we had an outbreak of cholera in the Dadaab refugee camp. It is a crisis, not only for government, even for the multilateral agencies, UN, like UNDP. We all come together to ensure that we are able to deal with this issue. And what is causing the cholera outbreak is congestion. And that's why the government decided after that to open two camps in Dadaab, which had been closed earlier in 2015 when the government policy was different. But I want to say this government is really keen to ensure that there is what we call a resettlement of refugees and what we call the Marshall Plan. And I know that you know the Marshall Plan. This is a plan to ensure that refugees are reintegrated into society. They are settled back into the society. And we think that is one of the reasons. That's one of the opportunities. Of course, the best case scenario would be for those refugees who are able to voluntarily say, we want to go, we want to leave. But it seems the case is a bit difficult. But in our Marshall Plan, which is now being finalized, we are saying we need to reintegrate or rather resettle refugees in the country. We need to move them from the camps or convert the camps into settlement areas. That is the new direction the government is taking about. And be able to give them opportunities, whether it is education, whether it's healthcare, and even citizenship. We are saying these people have been there for the last 40 years. Some of them were born there. What do we really do? That is what we have what called Marshall Plan that was developed in last year. And we are saying the Refugee Act also allows us to be able to apply some of those packages, like giving them opportunities, like making them Kenyan citizens. And we think that is the way to go because it seems this issue of refugees remains a very difficult and complex issue to us. As I wind up, ladies and gentlemen, this issue of refugees comes also with opportunities and also challenges. As I have said, some of the refugees are very talented people, and some of them are very good talent that when we tap, they can be able to help transform our country. So as much as we look at the negative side of the refugees, it's also important to look at the other side of it. It is also sometimes good. We also want to have what we call a refugee response framework, which will help government really tap some of those opportunities created by the refugees in terms of talent, in terms of skills, in terms of course. Some of these refugees have gone to some of the best universities in the world. Some of them are school there in primary, secondary. Some of them are going to leading Ivy League universities like Harvard and so on. So we need to have an engagement to see how can we convert the refugee crisis into an opportunity for the development of our country. So I want to say that those are the thoughts that we have as government, and that we are now working with the regulations. We had a meeting last week with the multilateral agencies, and we are working on ensuring that we operationalize the Refugee Act 2021. Is the latest act that is creating the Marshall Plan. We are in discussions with the different stakeholders so that we are able to implement what was passed in Parliament in the year 2021. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I finish, I want to say that we are really looking forward to working with the editors. We are really looking forward for a positive story. When I was doing my PhD in the US about 12 years ago, I was in America, and sometimes we say so many stories about our continent, our country, that sometimes are too extreme. And then this professor who was teaching us then, that was in 2010, told me, you know, I want to travel. Yeah, I want to take a risk. I want to travel to Africa. All right. I am a risk taker. I am the only risk taker professor in this university. And he's not a young lady. A lady at 5th floor, like mid-50s or thereabouts, says, I want to take a risk. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to Kenya. I told the lady, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Then the lady, of course, said, oh yeah, we see in the media stories about Africa, insecurity, houses burning, people living in huts, many stories. That is why I don't know whether when I go to Africa, whether I will come back in one piece or not. And then the lady came here in 2011. And the lady had decided, the professor decided, I'm coming here, stay here for 1 month. When she arrived here, she stayed here for 1 month. She said, I want to extend. She stayed here for a year. She extended for 2 years and said, oh, so Africa is as safe as this. So as we report some of these things, we need to, I don't know how we are going to do it so that we have more patriotism. Because what comes out there is so negative. And it may not necessarily be your fault alone. I don't know who and who we should be engaging. Because out there, even when I was in Pakistan, we think we are stereotyped. Pakistan is a very dangerous place. They also think Africa is a very dangerous place. They don't want to come in. I don't know what you guys want to talk about. But when I was there for a long time, they wonder, how would I go to Africa? Will I really survive there? We tell them, you guys, your country is having so many issues. With Afghanistan, with India, with who? Bomb blasts all the time. But they say, no, we are very okay. Africa is where there's a problem. That's what they say. And this is a true story. And they keep on telling me all the time that, well, you guys. So, but this starts with us. I want to say that we cannot pass the buck to any other person. This has to start with us. It starts with an individual. It doesn't have to start with the people. Fortunately, you are organized in a club, press club. So you can start it slowly, because you cannot continue with these stories. This is costing us a lot. Costing us a lot in terms of tourism. Costing us a lot in terms of image. And you know, image is everything. How you look, all right, how people perceive you. Whether it is perceived, whether it is true or false, sometimes doesn't matter. That perception is the software that makes countries great in terms of tourism, in terms of foreign exchange, in terms of many things. So I do not want to bore you with so many stories. I want to conclude by saying that we have an opportunity collectively and even individually to be able to work together to ensure that we help our country move forward. And I want to say that this government, unlike other governments, one thing that is very clear, this is a government that is ready to listen to you, to listen together with you, to sit down with you and engage. Why am I saying so? We don't believe in things like deep state, intimidation, or that kind of things. We believe in sitting down, reasoning together, so that we get a way forward for our country. Thank you very much for listening to me, and God bless all of you.